Okay, in this video we are going to be looking at a student called Yuriy. He is from the Ukraine and his mother tongue is both Ukrainian and Russian. Quite similar languages to a certain extent, both Slavic languages, which is an Indo-European language, but it is quite far away from English. So it's not much help to him to know those languages. Certainly not as much help as somebody who spoke Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, or German, Dutch, and then French on the Latin languages side. Anyway, let's see what he can do. Okay, good day. My name is James Castleton. Can you tell me?
My first name is Yuriy and my last name is...
Thank you.
Actually, we have in Ukraine middle name. It's the name of the father, so it's like... But
okay, name of the father. If he wants to explain that, we prefer to say my father, or... Oh, I see what he means, like in general. Okay, in that case, it's the father's name. Okay, we take our father's name as a middle name. Okay. Okay. Can you tell me where you are from?
I'm from Ukraine, from the Western Ukraine.
Okay. From the western part of Ukraine? From the western part of Ukraine or West Ukraine? Okay. If I use, you could say technically Western Ukraine. Actually, that's true. You could say Western Ukraine, but don't put the before it. Just say I'm from Western Ukraine, or I'm from Southern Europe, or I'm from Northern India, or the north of India, or the northern part of India. Okay. Real exam, I would ask to see your identification now. So of course I'll pretend to look at it, say thank you, that's fine. Okay, now in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. So let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student?
Actually, presently, I work. I work as a constructor for one of the big resorts in the west of Ukraine.
Okay, there he uses the west of Ukraine. That's good. A constructor. What? Now that's the question. Is what exactly is a constructor? Do you mean I work in the construction industry? Are you an engineer? Are you a builder? Are you an electrician? Constructor has a very general meaning in English, so we're not really sure what he does.
And mostly I do the job indoor, but some...
So he might be working on indoor fittings, in the interiors of a new resort that's being put up in the western part of Ukraine.
Time in outdoor job as well, if it's needed. So, and of course, part-time I study. I study for the IELTS.
Okay, and part-time is a nice word. Part-time study. Okay, good collocation.
Moment as well.
Why did you choose this kind of work?
Well, I used to work as a bartender for a pretty long period of time, about for 6-7 years. But my heart is for construction, so I sleep.
Good, nice phrase. My heart is in construction. So just bear in mind that it's in construction, but a nice phrase, a nice idiomatic phrase.
To new profession background, and I used to study for about 3 years myself online, and then in about 2016 I have started to work as a constructor.
Okay, so I used to study, nice use of the words used to. So I used to study things that I no longer do. It was a habit before, but it's no longer a habit for me. So I used to study And sorry, there's one thing I wanted to say, but I can't remember now.
3 years myself online.
Okay, yeah, I used to study by myself online. I was this is a useful one, taught, to teach myself. I was self-taught in English, or I taught myself English, plus a little bit from school, but the teacher wasn't very good, or etc. etc. Okay.
Then in about 2016, I have started to work as a constructor.
Okay. Remember, when I mention a specific time in the past in English, you'll know from the grammar course. I've done a lot of this. So when I talk about a specific time in the past, I never use the present perfect. The present is for the present, a past action that affects us now. So in 2016, I have started working, because it's present perfect. In 2016, I started working. That's past simple. There's the ed, past. Okay, so I started working, or I started working in construction. Okay, so work in something, work in a certain field, a certain field. Okay. All right. Let's talk about friends now. How often do you go out with your friends?
Well, time to time, I go out with my friends, of course, but mostly I don't have much spare time. Usually I go play soccer with my.
Okay, good. Nice use of the word much. I don't have much time, so remember, those of you who are making a mistake with much and many, at least this case he uses it right, because much comes with an uncountable thing, like I don't have much money, I don't have much time, I don't have much passion, uncountable things like passion, interest. That works well. Okay, let's just go back a little bit.
Go play soccer with my friends.
I go play soccer with my friends. That's fine. Okay. This is technically go and play soccer, but in modern English, when we speak quickly, we don't hear the and. So I go play soccer with my friends. That's fine. It's pronounced go and play soccer with my friends.
Or just sometimes have a cup of coffee, or sometimes some maybe outdoor, like go pick up mushroom to the forest.
Okay. I don't have much spare time, but when I do, I might go and play football with my friends in the park, or have a cup of coffee, or maybe go and do an outdoor activity like picking mushrooms in the forest. Okay. But when I do, I might go and play football with my friends in the park, or have a cup of coffee with them, with someone, or maybe go and do an. Go and do. So there's the go and do. And you do an outdoor activity. You don't make an outdoor activity. You don't go an outdoor activity. It's always with do. So do an outdoor activity, such as or like. You can use both. Picking mushrooms in the forest near my house. Okay.
Time to time I do, but not too often.
Okay, so don't forget, from time to time. How friendly are you with your neighbors?
Well, the neighbors is very important for me, and
okay, the neighbors is. Be careful with that. So I know what he's trying to say is that the concept of having a good relationship with neighbors is important to me, because we've got the word concept. That's the main subject. the idea of having friendly relationships with your neighbors is very important to me because, okay, friendly relationships. The idea of having a friendly, relationship with your neighbors is very important to me. Okay, neighbors are important. It's a bit strange because what do you mean neighbors are important? Do you mean having friends with neighbors are important, or living within distance of your neighbors so that you can wave at them in the morning, or are you nervous about crime so at least your neighbor is close to you? So this is very strange by itself, but if he's talking about being friendly with your neighbors, then that's fine. And of course in this case you use is because the main thing is idea, concept, notion, similar meaning. So the idea, the concept, the notion of having, they're all the similar meanings of idea.
I try to be as friendly as possible because I believe it is very important point in the life.
Okay, try to be as friendly as possible with them, which is good. And sorry, I'm not really using this recently. So pronunciation, I believe. This is a typical Russian or Ukrainian thing. Try to get the v sound. Believe. V. Okay, so I believe it's important to maintain good relations with people around me, especially my neighbors. Okay.
Be a good friendship with all the people around you.
So be good friendship. Have a good friendship. And it's difficult to have a friendship with people around you, but have a good relationship with people around you. Be on good terms. I think it's important to be on good terms, or at least as best terms as you can be, with the people that live near you. So to be on good terms, sorry, at least as best terms. As best terms. I don't know why that was he there. I think it's important to be on good terms with. So this is a phrase, to be on good terms with the people around you. That means have a good relationship with them, or at least as best terms as can be, or as best terms as possible. So this means like it's not always great. It's not always possible to be on good terms with somebody, but if they are annoying you or you end up annoying them, you try to maintain at least the best possible relationship with them as possible. And that's what I mean by at least. And by the way, that when I've said something and I want to correct myself, I might say or at least. So to say, to be on good terms, okay, oh, that needs to be underlined as well because it's the whole part of it. So I say to be on good terms with somebody, but it's not always possible. So what I mean to say is, or at least as best terms as can be, as possible. Let's just say, instead of can be, let's say possible to make it clearer. So as best terms as possible with the people that live near you or around you. Okay.
So it makes life much easier. Doesn't matter how circumstances come.
Yes, it makes life a lot easier. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. In the end, you will benefit from having good relations, or as best relations as possible, with those who live around you and near you. Okay, which is more important to you, friends or family?
Of course, it's my family. My family is priority number one for me.
Great phrase, priority. They are, or it is, priority number one for me. Great phrase. Okay. And he said, of course, it's family. That's making a connection between you and the examiner, suggesting the examiner is going to agree with you when you say, of course. And you could also say, there's no doubt that family comes first for me. Family is priority number one for me. There's no denying that family comes first for me. Okay, all of those, of course, is one way, and a lot of people use it, but try to use these ones as well. There's no denying that family comes first for me. And the one I had up there before, but I've forgotten. Right.
And I try to take care of them as much as I can.
Okay. Take care of them suggests that you are the breadwinner, perhaps. Maybe you are the one who's bringing in the money, and so just bear in mind, if you mean just to look after them, actually look after as well also has that connotation that my parents are old and they don't have much money, and I help out with the grocery bill. I help out with paying for the petrol for their car. But I look out for them. That means I'll be there when they need my help. I look out for them. I'll be there when I need my help is a nice phrase. It's in itself. But I look after them, and what did he say?
I try to take care of them as much.
Okay, and take care of them suggests that the rest of his family cannot look after themselves. So often, a mother would look after their child or take care of the child because the child is too young to feed itself. The child is too young to go shopping by itself. The child is too young to clothe itself. So look out for might be better in this case, but it depends. I don't know how old Yuri's parents are, or his siblings are, or what the circumstances are.
Just I can.
Okay. Now let's talk about dictionaries. Do you often use a dictionary?
Yes, I do, of course. I use a dictionary mostly every day because...
Okay, I know he's trying to say almost every day. Okay. So not Saturdays, not Fridays, but every other day.
Nowadays it's more easy to use it online.
Okay, more easy as opposed to easier. Now remember, easy is spelled with a Y, so when I make it into a comparative with ER, the Y becomes an I. So those in the IELTS grammar course, you would know all these. IELTS step-by-step grammar course.
Electronic dictionary, Google Translate.
Electronic dictionary. Electronical, that doesn't exist, in fact, electronical. Electric, bicycle, but electronic dictionary. So there's a slight difference. Electronic suggests that it has, how could I explain the difference? Just one second. Okay, this is just taken from a website here, so this is a good example. Electric chair, a chair that features electricity, whereas an electronic chair is a special chair that has some complex circuitry inside it. So electronic dictionary has circuitry inside it. If you open it up, you can see the circuits. Electric dictionary, well, doesn't exist, obviously. That wouldn't make sense. Okay. Anyway, so electric bicycle is a bicycle that is powered by electricity, whereas electronic bicycle might have special gadgets within it that maybe has its personal GPS, maybe has some sort of clever system that automatically controls the gears depending on if you're going up a hill or downhill. I don't know of an electronic bicycle. Sorry, I don't know of an electronic bicycle, but you never know. In the next 5 years, there might be an electronic bicycle that has circuitry inside it. Okay, anyway, carry
on. Another one, and mostly it's for English because I do study part-time, so I use it every day.
What kinds of dictionaries do you think are the most useful?
Well, for general, I think from my own experience, I can say that Oxford Dictionary was very useful because it explains the words in English, so you learn English with English explanation, which...
Okay, that's good. He's talking about a monolingual dictionary. So there are a lot of monolingual dictionaries. The Oxford Dictionary is one such thing. My favorite, as you all know, those of you who are following me, is the Longman Dictionary. I find that very good for monolingual dictionaries. So yes, he's right. You can learn English through the dictionary. So you're learning a new word, but you're also learning other words through the definition or the explanation, as he uses the word. I think he said explanation.
In English, so you learn English with English explanation.
Okay, you learn English through the which is also in English. Okay, because it's monolingual. If you are talking about a dictionary that goes from, for example, Urdu to English and English to Urdu, then that's a bilingual dictionary, and they're fine for lower level students, but when you get to the IELTS level, if you want anything above a 6, you need to definitely migrate over to a monolingual dictionary.
Which makes it much better understanding, and it makes remember it more solid than I would just translate it into my own language.
Okay, good try. I mean, you put the word solid, makes remembering the idea more solid. It's just a number of grammar mistakes here. So let's just go back and listen one more time.
And it makes remember it English with English explanation, which makes it much better understanding.
Okay, so he uses the word which is a indefinite relative clause. So which makes it much better understanding, which makes it a lot easier to understand. Okay, if the definition, of course, is clear. So remember, a relative clause with which, there's a non-defining relative clause from the IELTS step-by-step mastering grammar. You would know about this. There is always a comma. So this is very useful, non-defining relative clause, to give extra information, to append extra information. That means at the end of what you have said, we use this which. So he's doing it well, which makes it a lot easier to understand. And he's talking now about memorizing.
And it makes remember it more solid than I would just translate it into my own language.
Okay. Not only that, it also makes remembering it a lot more solid and concrete than if I had simply learned the word in my own language. Let's not use the word learned, let's say look up the word in my own language using a bilingual dictionary. Okay. Not only that, it also makes remembering it a lot more solid. He wanted to say concrete. Of course, you can say concrete in English as well. It's idiomatic use of, it's something a lot more clear and solid and concrete in our mind. So that's fine. Then if I had, so he forgot the if. So he's comparing it to being solid compared to if it was, if he looked it up in a bilingual dictionary. So this is a very complex language. He's trying his best. He's forgotten a few of these things. He did say would, then would simply look up, or then would, let's just see.
More solid than I would just translate it into my...
Okay, then I would. if I was trying to think why he's using would here, which grammar mistake is pushing in here. Okay, we don't need to use had. Let's just say if I simply looked up. Oh, I know what it is. Okay, so he's getting mixed up with a second conditional. If I looked up the word in my language, it wouldn't be as good as looking it up in English using a monolingual dictionary. So he's getting mixed up with here. He wants to put would here. A lot of people, even now, sometimes native speakers, they say, if I would look, Americans like to make this mistake, if I would look up the word in my language, it wouldn't be as good. So a lot of people make this mistake, and it's understandable why he's making it. But bear in mind, this is incorrect. It's the past form of the verb with if in the same clause as if. If we're talking about a conditional number 2 clause, if I looked up the word in my language, comma, it wouldn't be as good as looking it up in English. There's the word in the second clause after the comma. So there we go. If I simply looked up the word in my language, it would be, it's much more solid, a lot more solid and concrete than if I simply looked up the word in my own language. Okay, so he's trying his best to use some quite complex language here, but he's making mistakes in the complex language, which is fine because it shows off his higher. He's trying his best, but it's also bringing his grade down a little bit because he doesn't know how to use them. If he can fix this, then obviously his grade goes up to much higher than currently.
Own language.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to give you a topic, and I'd Okay, so describe a writer you would like to meet. You could say who the writer is, what you know about the writer already, and what you would like to find out more about him, and why you would like to meet this writer. Now, Yuri has a little bit of a problem because he says he's not a big reader, so he doesn't know any famous writers. This is an opportunity for you to steer the conversation away. You don't have to answer the question. Let's say you have to make it clear that you understand the question, and you have to cleverly manipulate the examiner away from that. But it would be no problem to say, I must admit that I don't read very many books, and in fact I can't right now. A famous writer doesn't come to my mind right now, but there is a guy from my town or my city who lives near me, who writes for the local newspaper, and he's very funny. And I'm going to talk about, technically he's not a writer, he's a journalist, but he is a writer. I mean, an author, I think they mean by author, but it can be a journalist, could be even my sister, but in this case it was I would like to meet, so it doesn't work here. But somebody that writes a blog on the internet or something like that. Okay, so don't let these subjects stop you from speaking for 2 minutes, and certainly try avoid making stuff up. Like if you can base it on some form of truth, it will make your life a lot easier. Sorry, I think Can you start speaking now, please?
Yes, I can. Well, it was kind of unexpected topic because...
Unexpected topic?
Really much about the reading books. But
I don't know much about reading books, okay?
Anyway, I like sports, so I would like to talk about the one writer. He's actually my teacher.
Okay, so I like sports, and I'll be talking about, this is your chance to use the future continuous, I'll be or I'm going to be talking about, because we use this going to be, or I'll be talking about when it's something that is just in due course. It's this is what I'm going to do, whether you like it or not. So I'll be talking about, even though I don't read much, I'm going to be talking about sports and writing in relation to this, and he's going to now talk about his teacher. So it doesn't quite match this, somebody he would like to meet, but that shouldn't stop you. I still want you to speak for 2 minutes, as I said, as long as you make it clear that you understand this. So you could say, I'm going to be talking about my teacher. Now, I know that the question asks me to talk about somebody that I haven't met before, but if you don't mind, I'm going to talk about my teacher now. Okay.
From the school, and he has wrote a great book about the.
So he has written, or he wrote, depends on what, both of them are grammatically acceptable in this context. He wrote a book when I'm focusing on the actual action of writing the book in the past, or he has written a book when I'm focusing on the book itself and the contents of the book that is relevant now, present perfect. Okay.
About the influence of sport on kids' life, and it is very important to learn about it, because our.
Okay. So my teacher wrote a book about 4 or 5 years ago about how important sports are and how sports can influence a child's development. About how important sports are and how sports can influence a child's development. Okay.
To learn about it, because our it impact our health. So he's actually his name is Vitaly, and he is a nice man. He's about 45-year-old, and I know.
Okay, so be careful of words like nice. You'll hear me say this. A nice man doesn't help us anything. So he's very sociable. He goes out of his way to help. He's a middle-aged teacher. He goes out of his way to help people when they are in trouble. He's just generally a very kind person. Okay, to go out of your way to help. So if you're on the, idiomatically, this is a chance to use an idiom. So you're walking on the path, you see a problem, somebody's having a problem over there, you go out of your way to go and help that person, then you come back on the path and carry on. So idiomatic. And middle-aged, 45, 50, 55, that's middle ages. Middle-aged. The Middle Ages, of course, is a time period of history.
Him since my childhood. He used to train me different kind of sports.
Okay, he said as there, so train me in different kinds of sports, and he says as, which is a very typical Russian thing or Ukrainian thing to do. We need to say such as, and he's going to give us an example.
As wrestling, basketball, soccer, and other one as well. And
other one it means one, so other sports as well.
I can say I don't know everything about him. So basically, I would like to know more about his, let's say, personal beliefs about the.
Okay, so of course, I don't know everything about him, and I wouldn't mind finding out more information about him, about his personal beliefs, about his political beliefs, his religious beliefs. Okay. I wouldn't mind finding out more information about. Okay, so this means, I'm not going to go out of my way to find more information, but if I happen to come across a book or something or an article about him, I would read it because I find him interesting, and he was a part of my life when I was growing up. Okay.
Religion, about how he see the political world, because
Okay, how he sees the political world. Yeah, Ukraine is going through some interesting times politically, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it would be interesting to find out from people that you respect. How do you feel? How do you think? How he sees the world is a nice phrase. Okay, I'd love to know how he sees the world in terms of religion, politics, etc. When we can say etc. It's more common in spoken English. Sorry, in written English, but better to say and so on instead of etc. in spoken English.
I have never had a chance to talk to him.
Okay, I've never had a chance to talk to him about these things. Great, it's a good phrase, to not have a chance to. Okay. Thank you, Yuri. Okay, and would you do you think that you would be a good writer?
Well, actually, I've never tried to write any book, so
Any must come with S, so any books. I haven't tried to write any books.
well, maybe on certain topics I may be a good writer.
Okay, so maybe. So maybe, a single word, maybe I would be a good writer, but he uses it in a sentence, so better to use might. I might be a good. So maybe, technically I could put a comma here, maybe I would be a good writer, I might be a good writer. Okay. And I'm just trying to think of a nice idiom for try. One second. Have a go at something. I wouldn't mind having a go at it, at writing. So to have a go, and with mind, after mind ing, so I wouldn't mind having a go at writing. I think in certain topics I wouldn't be too bad.
But if I would try, so
okay, be careful with that one. So if I would try, same problem with the second conditional. If I tried, and no so with if, never. So if I tried, I would. Let's see if he gets it right.
Then I can say about more.
Okay, let's try this. This is the whole thing.
So then I can say about more, sure.
Okay, if I tried, then I could say more. I would be able to tell you more about whether I am a good writer or not. Since he's never tried, he doesn't actually know. Okay, so there's would because if, and then past form of try, so it comes with if. Second conditional, hypothetical. All of this is hypothetical because he's never tried to write before. Okay, let's go on to this, part 3.
I can.
For the booklet and paper and pencil. Talking about a writer that you'd most like to meet, and I'd like to discuss with you one or two more general questions related to this. So let's consider, first of all, reading and children. So what do you think? What kinds of books are most popular with children?
Usually that's different books about the kids topics.
Usually that's different books. So, well, don't know why that's. Yeah, I think just starting with books that relate to kids on their level, topics that interest kids, and it depends. I mean, I know some kids love dinosaurs, some kids love all sorts of things, so it depends on what the topic is as well. Okay, but this is still the subject, so I need a main verb. So books that relate to kids on their level, topics that interest kids are what children would gravitate towards if they had to choose a book. Okay, to gravitate towards, move towards. So if you're in a library with a child and he has to read a book for the next 10 minutes, of course he's going to gravitate, or she is going to gravitate towards stuff that's, more colorful and with topics that interest kids. So here's the main verb. Books that relate to kids, topics that interest kids are what children would gravitate towards if they had to choose a book. Okay, another one. There's the conditional, second conditional, hypothetical. We're not in a library right now. There are no children. It's hypothetical.
I like to read with different pictures on. It could be any topic, just in general, as long as it's attractive and colorful. So
good, a nice phrase. As long as. Okay, so they'll be interested in. He's basically saying they'll be interested in any book as long as there's pictures, it's colorful, and it's attractive in some way.
So kids, they would like it for sure. As I see from my personal example, I have a small child and she likes to watch and read wherever it's beautiful and colorful.
Okay, so she likes to, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's beautiful and full of colorful.
Does it all.
Okay, why do you think some children prefer not to read books these days? Did you hear?
Apologize one more time.
Okay, no problem. So why do you think some children these days prefer not to read books so much? Okay, I'm apologize, just be careful. I apologize with no I am. So I apologize. I'm sorry is mixing, maybe what he's mixing up. Please repeat, I think you said that or something similar. So I apologize. I'm sorry. Okay, different.
Technically, on my personal opinion, it's a big influence of the internet. They prefer to watch video, cartoons, listen through different devices rather than reading the actual book. So this technology is coming up all the time, and it
coming up. Okay, so he's talking about the fact that nowadays children prefer to get not just YouTube videos but lessons through videos rather than reading books because the technology is coming up. I think he means to say the technology is developing or it is improving all the time, and different devices now have gamification, which is making games out of lessons, making lessons into games so that we learn in that way. Okay.
The kids much more than the real books.
Okay, they relate better, or kids relate better to these devices with moving pictures and colors and things than static books. Static books. Static means not moving, flat. Okay.
Paper books.
And so, do you see this as a problem these days?
Well, it's difficult to judge that is a problem or that is just a change.
Okay, great. It's difficult to judge. Let's do it down. It's difficult. Let's start again. It's difficult to judge yet whether it's a problem or just something that we need to keep up with. Now, he's talking about a change, and what he said is fine. It's just this word here, whether. It's difficult to judge yet, so we can't tell yet whether it's an actual problem that might one day cause problems for young children, or it's something that is change that we have to keep up with. That is a natural keep up with, something that we need to keep up with. An evolution, a change. We could say something like that. That is. Now it's a nice word for everybody. Listen, inevitable. Inevitable means there's nothing you can do about it. It's going to carry on doing this way. There's, climate change, unfortunately, right now is inevitable because no one is moving fast enough to solve it. So it's going to happen whether we like it or not. And that's what he means here. So a nice phrase, difficult to judge, very useful. Difficult to tell. We can actually say this. It has the similar meaning. It's difficult to tell yet. Whether has a similar meaning to if, but in this case it's better with whether because there's two options. Whether it's a problem or it's something that we simply need to keep up with because it's a natural or normal evolution. Normal evolution, a change that's inevitable. A useful word, everybody please try and remember that because it's useful in many topics. Something that's inevitable is nothing we can do about it. It just carries on. Okay, let's carry on.
So I think that's the science should find out is a problem or not. But for me,
it's up to scientists and researchers to determine whether this is a problem or not. I personally don't know if it is really. I personally don't think it is really. So it's up to scientists. The job, the responsibility is for scientists and researchers to work out, to determine, to work out whether this is a problem or not. I personally don't think it is really. He may think, well, this is just the way things are developing, and we can't stop change like this. Okay, let's carry on.
For my opinion, I guess it must be a balance between electronic and paper-based book that will makes more life more easier.
Okay, so there must be a balance. He said there must be a balance. We need to strike a balance between paper-based books and electronic activities. So in the school, for example, and when there's a balance, when we've struck a balance between the two, then things become a lot easier. So remember, not more easy, but easier. Sure.
because
Okay, now let's move on to a topic, sort of reading for different purposes. Are there any times when reading fast or reading at speed is a useful skill to have?
absolutely it is, especially when you are planning to do exam, like I do at this time in IELTS, and it make very big sense because the reading part of the test.
Okay, so it makes very big sense. So he means to say, of course, it makes a lot of sense to be able to speed read in the IELTS reading exam because you're only given 1 hour to read 3 rather long extracts that really challenge your ability to process information quickly. Of course, it makes a lot of sense to be able to speed read. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. It's reading exam because you're only given 1 hour to read 3 rather long extracts. I'm talking about if you're doing the academic IELTS. Obviously, if you're doing general training, you've got more than 3 that really challenge your ability, extracts that challenge your ability to process information quickly. Okay, so yeah, good.
You must read it just as rapid as possible.
Okay, you must read it as quickly as possible. So this is the general you, not you. He's not talking to me as if I'm an exam candidate. He's talking about the general you. In which case, in this one, when I talk about the general you and I'm talking about this is the way it is, this is the rules of the game, we prefer to say have to. So you have to read it as quickly as possible. Otherwise, you must is giving advice, strong advice. And then that's usually for a person, specific person, rather than the general you. So yeah, you have to read it as quickly as possible and answer the questions quickly too.
Plus, you have to understand and get an idea about it, not just go through it, but really read and understand. So
I think he said go through it, got through it. I'm not sure. It's not just that you have to go through it, but you really have to understand it and answer questions that are pretty tricky on it. So answer questions on something, answer questions on it, on an extract, answer questions on a article. Okay, carry on.
in order to achieve this skill, you have to practice it constantly.
Yeah. So you mentioned, okay, great. So in order to achieve the skill, you have to practice it constantly. A great phrase. Let's just leave it like that. That's fine. Okay. The IELTS being an exam where reading quickly is definitely beneficial. Can you think of any jobs where reading very fast is also beneficial?
It must be, I think, any job which is related to get information, which is related to.
Okay, so related to, I know what he's getting the mistake. So he's thinking that this is an infinitive form. So to get, to swim, to jump, to run, but it is not. The to here is a preposition. So we use the ing always, the verb after. So it's related to getting.
Related to.
Sorry.
It must be, I think, any job which is related to get information, which is related to read a lot of information during.
So getting information, reading a lot of information during
working time.
Okay, during working hours. Okay, while you are at work. Okay, so during just the difference between during and while is quite tricky. You need to look on the on the IELTS step-by-step grammar and vocabulary course. I'll also talk about it here, the difference between these two here. So during working hours, just remember that, or while you're at work, if you're forced to get or read a lot of information, then reading quickly helps you.
So it will be very beneficial, because as faster you read and understand what you are reading about, then more you will be benefited from it.
Okay, he's trying very hard to use the. You can see what he did there, but he's messed it up a little bit, unfortunately. So the faster you read and the faster you understand something, the more benefits you are going to gain from your job. Something like that, or the more beneficial it will be for you. The more beneficial it will be for you. Let's do it that way. So the faster you read, let's just do it easier. The faster you understand something, this is an unusual one, that there's no grammar, there's no main verb in this. It's one of the few sentences in English that doesn't have a main verb. So the faster you read, the faster you understand something, the more beneficial it will be for you. Okay, and technically, if I'm writing this down, I would put a comma here. So the faster you read and the faster you understand something, comma, the more beneficial it will be for you. There's no than or anything like that. It's simply the next word is the.
And your employer will be more happy, and you will get much higher salary.
Okay, he'll be happier, similar to easy. Happy. I know it's double syllable, 2 syllables, but the Y becomes an IER. He'll be a lot happier, and your salary will increase. Okay. Thank you very much, Yuri. That is the end of the test. Okay, so let's have a look now at Yuri's band. Okay, so let's have a look here. So fluency and coherence tends to be a stronger thing with many people, in at least who've been following my courses. So the ones who managed to come on to do this for me tend to have quite good fluency and coherence. So he is around a 7 here, because without noticeable effort, he speaks at length with no serious problems. I think part 2 was a bit of an issue for him, because he mentioned that he's not an avid reader, but he still managed to get through that for the most part. There is sometimes a little bit of language-related hesitation, but not much. And he does occasionally use some connectives and discourse markers effectively, and he doesn't overuse them. It doesn't look like he's just pushing them in and shoehorning them in for the sake of it. Then we go to vocabulary. Not much idiomatic vocabulary coming through. And talk about less common, it's not as evident as I've seen with others. So he's closer to a 6 for this one here. He does have a wide enough vocabulary to discuss topics at length. He makes his meanings clear, and there are some inappropriacies, but it's generally not an issue. I can still follow what he's saying. He does have a few simple and mixture of simple and complex structures, although sometimes he's not quite got it right. So there are some mistakes with those complex structures, with the if, the conditionals, and with relative clauses and the as we saw right at the end. So that's closer to a 6. But then his pronunciation is good. I followed him generally. It's not brilliant with his weak forms and connected speech. It's nowhere near an 8, but it's not as bad. I don't have any problem understanding what he's saying. There was no reduction in clarity at all, but he's not quite good enough because his weak forms aren't fantastic. So we're over here with the pronunciation, which gives him a 6.5 in the speaking. This is his first speaking exam, so that's pretty good. Yuri, I'm sure he's going to start working on these, and he has an opportunity, once he's got these right, to push this up and then work on those weak forms to a certain extent to get a nice 7.5, which is doable. Okay, I think that's useful. I hope, sorry, that's useful, and let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.